Samsung Galaxy Note 8 72 hours later. That video's coming up right now. Let's go. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and welcome to my Galaxy Note 8 72 hours later review video. Now, we're not going to talk all the deets in this video, all the details about specifications and all that. You could just read a website if you want to know all that. I'm going to give you my experience with 72 hours with the Note 8. The only specs I do want to cover is that you have a 6.3-inch AMOLED display here, 521 pixels per inch. This has Android 7.1.1 Nougat, dual cameras on the back. Those are 12 megapixel sensors on the rear here, expandable storage, and that's all I'm going to cover here when it comes to the Note 8. Also, we do have an IP68 water resistance pen, which is a nice added touch. Definitely not afraid to get my pen near some water here with the Note 8. But the first thing I want to talk about is the body. So how has the body been for me over the past 72 hours? Well, I got huge hands, so the Note 8 is no problem for someone like me, but I could totally understand where you're coming from if you say like the Note 8 is too tall. This is an extremely tall smartphone. Now, the Galaxy S8 Plus is about the same height, but just slightly. The Note 8 is just slightly, ever so slightly taller than an S8 Plus, and it's more square, so it gives the illusion that it is bigger in the hand than it really is. So very large smartphone here in the Note 8. That kind of goes back to, you know, the Note's lineup of all time. Note has always been trying to be the largest smartphone on the block, and it's not the largest smartphone on the block anymore, but this is a big smartphone right here in the Note 8. But overall handling of it, I've really liked the grip of it. It's very grippy, a lot less easy to drop than something like the S8 because it's not as curvy. This just fits in the hand really nicely. And although the glass does get very fingerprint magnet-like, it definitely, you know, has some good grip because it's not like a slippery aluminum. So the glass back is welcome here. I do like it. It feels premium. It looks premium, and it has pretty good grip. So that's my take so far on the body. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about my experiences with the display so far. So I know everybody is saying that this is the best display on the planet. Everyone is saying that, and I would have to agree. The display on this thing is an extremely beautiful display. I mean, it's unbelievable how bright it gets, especially for an AMOLED panel. I've had a lot of troubles in the past seeing AMOLED panels outside, but this one is not only extremely sharp in the Note 8, it's also very good at its viewing angles, and it's very good at its high levels of brightness, whether you're outdoors, indoors. Indoors at night, it looks even better. In addition to that, I haven't really seen that whole, you know, reddish looking display like that was on the Galaxy S8 earlier this year. You do have the ability to change this thing into WQHD, Full HD, and HD+. If we go back in display modes right here, you do have adaptive display, which is basically what True Tone is on the iPhone that's coming, cinema display, photo, and basic. So many color options here for your display, and it's really a fantastic panel here on the Note 8. Now, one thing I don't like about it, only one thing, is that it's hard to put screen protectors on this phone. So this is the kind of phone I would definitely go to a professional to have them put the screen protectors on. They're actually quite hard because the bubbles are really hard to get off the edges of this phone. So have someone who really knows how to put a screen protector on do this. It's going to be annoying. I'm telling you right now. It was even annoying for me, and I've been putting screen protectors on for a long time. Now, this also gives you the Edge panel, which was on the Galaxy S7 Edge, the S6 Edge, as well as, you know, past Note phones. I think it was the Note Edge way back. And then also it was on the Galaxy Note 7 that blew up. So it makes its return, and it's welcome. I like the Edge panel. And this whole app pair thing is actually quite useful. I used it and tried it out. It's more useful than you would think. So you're using the app pair, and it just puts two apps side by side, and you don't even have to like drag them yourself. So it just makes you more faster when you want to multitasking, and lends to giving you a nice software experience here. So overall, the display is a marvelous display. It's the best display I have ever seen on any smartphone. So in terms of the software here with the Note 8, we are looking at the Samsung Experience version 8.5. So if I go down to About Phone here, you can see 8.5 Experience version here, 7.1.1 Nougat. And how has my experience been so far on the Note 8? So very similar to the Galaxy S8, S8 Plus. This phone is identical basically in the software. The only differences I have noticed is that, and I kind of like these differences, you get way different wallpapers. So if we go into wallpapers here, on the Note 8. You can see it's a totally different lineup of wallpapers here for the Note 8, which is nice. And you do get your S Pen functionality like Samsung Notes. Now, S Note is gone here, and you don't have Action Memo anymore, which is kind of annoying. So I went ahead and did an APK download for the older S Note that came on phones like the Note. In addition to that, they added this software right here on the pen. You could see it gives you this whole scroll wheel here. It gives you live messaging, coloring, which is really cool if you're into the whole pen up community. This is actually very fun to do. You would think it's just a gimmick, but when you're just, you know, bored or whatever and you just want to color something, this is a really cool thing to do. And if you're artistic, you're going to love this phone right here. In addition, there's a couple different features in the settings. So when we go to display here, if we go down into home screen, let's go into home screen here. Actually, it's not home screen. Down here, navigation bar. Navigation bar, these are a little bit different, these colors, than on the S8 Plus. So that's a little bit different thing I noticed right here. And you also get facial recognition on this phone, as well as iris scanning makes its return. Fingerprint scanner is up at the back. And how has my experience been with this so far? I'm already used to using the S8 Plus, so it's not a big deal to me. It's not a problem to me in the fingerprint scanner. But overall, the Samsung experience here, I think it's the best Android experience right now for me. It's not the best for everyone. A lot of people are going to love stock. I understand that. I understand where you're coming from. I'm a features guy, so this is the best experience for me. This is just my experience, though. So what about the performance here on the Samsung Galaxy Note 8? Well, you're looking at a Snapdragon 835 CPU with 6 gigabytes of RAM. That's an octa-core chipset, so of course it's going to be fast, but a lot of people want to know, does that Samsung experience still lag up like it was doing on the S8, S8 Plus a couple of times? Now, the S8 and S8 Plus do break in after a while. They get a little bit smoother over time. In my experience, it was a little twitchy when I was setting everything up on the S8 Plus, but this one just refines to a whole another level. That 2 gigabytes of RAM I think is helping here because the Note 8 is just running fantastic, definitely better than the S8 Plus in my experience. So I don't see any lag at all on this phone. It's a monster in performance in everything you do here on the Note 8. Even RAM management is pretty good here on the Samsung Galaxy Note 8. You're going to have no issues in terms of performance, but we're going to have to keep it updated. We're going to do another video over time to see how it does in the long-term experience. So you guys might be asking yourself, how is the battery life here on the Samsung Galaxy Note 8? And I could tell you right now that it's really good. It's actually better than what most people are thinking with this whole 3500 to 3300 milliamp hour battery from the S8 Plus to the Note 8. Now, one thing I don't want you to be deceived by is if you do get this phone, you know, it does go from 100 to like 89%. The first 10% drops off really fast for some reason on this phone, but after that, it just seems to keep lasting and keep lasting. And from like 89% to 50, it's like 3 hours of on-screen time. So don't be deceived by that first 10%. It's going to go down kind of quickly here, but the Note 8 can last a whole day with ease. It's not going to go more than 1 day, but definitely a whole day with ease. If you guys are light users, it will go more than a day. And if you use these max power saving modes, of course. But overall, my experience with the battery life has been fantastic. And with fast charging, it doesn't really matter if it's a little bit worse than the S8 Plus. I have to do further testing to give you a conclusion on that. But so far, it's looking like it might be slightly less than the S8 Plus, but still really solid battery life. So what about the phone calling experience here on the Samsung Galaxy Note 8? Well, so far I've been having a pretty good experience here with the phone calling. Now, the phone is pretty long, so depending on how you hold it up to your face, there might be a little bit issues people hearing you. So make sure you're able to speak right into the microphone down here because it's a very long phone. But other than that, if we look here at the bottom, I'm gonna try to get this into focus. This phone's kind of hard to photograph. You could see there is your speaker. So that speaker, although there's only one, I wish Samsung would put, dual front-facing speakers on their phone by now. They really should just get that on their phones. The phone actually sounds really good. The speakerphone gets really loud, and I have had no troubles holding on the signal. So solid phone calling experience. It's kind of HD quality too when you're talking to people. So keep that in mind. Like is the smart enhancements, like when people call, you can flip the phone over to mute the call. You can slide to call people, like the slide to call your contacts and stuff like that. That's included. So really good calling experience here so far for my Note 8. Okay guys, so what about the speaker and audio quality of the Galaxy Note 8? So say we go into YouTube here and you're watching the Nick Ackerman channel, you want to see the camera review of the Note 8. Let's go ahead and skip this ad really quickly, but you can hear already very full and very loud speakers. So it's not going to come through perfectly here on the camera, but even though they only have one speaker, they put a very good quality speaker in this phone. So, I'm not going to knock them too much for not having, the speakers on the top and the bottom. I really think that's how they should have them, kind of like what iPhone does, having a stereo sound speaker setup for your 7 Plus or the 8 Plus that's coming out here, 7, and also the small 8. But it's still a solid overall audio experience. It's not going to disappoint too many people. So just make sure you don't cover the speaker up and you will have a pretty loud experience here. Now, if you do get this thing wet, water might start shooting out of the speaker, so you're gonna have to wait for it to dry out if you do get this thing wet. Okay, my favorite feature so far, these dual cameras are lit. Let me tell you, these dual cameras are definitely lit here on the Note 8. They are just knocking other smartphones out of the water. This thing right here on the Note 8, I cannot believe the quality I'm getting on this phone. Now, you might have seen the S8 Plus earlier this year and thought that was fantastic. Well, wait till you get your hands on the Note 8, because not only do you have a regular picture now, you have the ability to go 2x optical zoom. And this is actually a lot more useful than you might think, because when you got to zoom and you get lost quality, you get noisy images, it's very annoying here. The Note 8 has been fantastic in the camera. Check out my camera review I just did a couple days ago to see it more in depth. The selfie quality, not the best in the world. It's an 8 megapixel camera, but it gets the job done. You got this full view mode here where you can see the entire camera, and focusing is just fantastic. I mean, you could go right here. It's gonna lock focus faster than you could blink an eye. This is one of fantastic camera, and I can't say enough about it. Best camera I've ever used on a smartphone, hands down. It even reminds me of some of the more premium camera, like point and shoot cameras in terms of its quality. So this is a fantastic camera. You bought this camera, you probably wouldn't need another camera to start a YouTube channel. To do anything you need to do with a camera, you're not going to need another one here if you get the Note 8. So in my 72 hours, are there any negatives with the Note 8? And not really. There's not a lot of negatives with this phone so far. I would say the Bixby button maybe sometimes gets in the way, but I actually like Bixby. It's pretty useful, and it's getting better and better by the day. It's not no Siri, it's not Google Assistant yet, but I think over a few years, it's going to be a pretty fantastic voice assistant for your upcoming Samsung smartphones. But I do think it's annoying sometimes when you do click it instead of the power or the volume rockers, but at least there's a good spacing between it so it doesn't happen too much. Now, I know people are probably expecting me to say that, that fingerprint scanner, that's a negative of that phone. It hasn't been for me, and this has mostly to do with the size of my hands. I can easily reach this fingerprint scanner, no problems. But that fingerprint scanner, if we're going to talk about a negative of this phone, that's going to be a negative for some people if you got smaller hands. So I could put myself in your shoes and see where you're coming from. If you got smaller hands, that's going to be a negative for you, but it's not a negative for me. Any other negatives? Well, I do think that, that they should have, speakers coming out the front instead of just on the bottom. I don't really like that too much, but the speaker, again, is pretty loud, so it makes up for being a good speaker on the phone. The S Pen has no negatives, really. I think they should have made the S Pen maybe a little bit longer because it's actually the same length as the Note 5, but again, that's not really a negative. That's just nitpicking now because I'm doing this section on is there anything that's not so great about the Note 8. I think that the Note 8 is a little heavy. I think it could have been a little bit lighter. It's 195 grams. It's a pretty heavy, monstrous smartphone. It'd be nice to see phones with this kind of power, this big, but a little bit lighter. So, what are the positives of this phone? Well, number one, that display. We're not going to talk too much more about it. It's an infinity display. We don't need to go on in depth about it. We know it's a Super AMOLED 2K. Samsung's making the best displays on the planet right now. Number two positive is the S Pen. This is a lot more useful than you think. Even if you don't use all of these, you could say maybe gimmicky features. These are not gimmicky features. If you use the pen, you're going to really love the Note 8. And even if you don't use that, there's times when you've been using your phone all day, your finger starts to hurt. Just pull out your S Pen and start navigating the screen, and you can go ahead and get your hand some rest from using your hand all day on your smartphone. Not that you should be using your smartphone all day, but I'm just saying if you are, you got your S Pen handy to go ahead and give your hand a rest. Also, it serves as like a surrogate mouse when you are in an internet web page. You can see right there, it's got like a little hand which allows you to click on little icons that you might mistap with your finger here. So it's very useful. You can also do this where you can scroll down here. It's called like a hover mode here, where you can just hover the page without even using your finger. So pretty fantastic there with the S Pen. Now, I also have enjoyed this live messaging feature. I thought this was kind of a copycat of Apple's, iMessage feature, but when I started using it, I realized it's actually quite different. Hey there. It's actually quite different from Apple's because you use the pen, so it's more, I would say, more personal because you're actually writing that message with the pen, a little bit more accurate, and it can be sent to any phone, not just iMessage users. So that's pretty cool stuff to see right there on the Galaxy Note 8. Any other positives? Well, there's a lot of positives. The cameras, I talked about those. The battery life has impressed versus disappointed, which many people might have thought it might have done. And other than that, I'm not going to go too much more on with the positives. This has been a fantastic experience in my past 72 hours, and I don't expect it to change here with the Note 8, but I will be following this device closely when it gets updates, as well as giving you more long-term experience. And the full review and many more speed tests with the Note 8 is coming to the channel. So if you found this video helpful, do me a favor, click the like button for me. Consider subscribing if you are new here. This was my experience 72 hours later with the Samsung Galaxy Note 8. It's definitely a win. If you guys are looking for the best smartphone on the Android side of things, I would say this is the best smartphone of 2017 for Android. Anyway, Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Be sure to be well, and peace.